For countless years, people have been told that happiness is waiting somewhere in the future. We are told to work harder, to earn more, to look better, to be better. Every advertisement, every social media scroll, every subtle message from the culture around us whispers the same idea. You are not enough as you are. You need something else, something new, something more. And so, many of us spend our lives chasing an invisible promise. We chase the perfect job, the perfect partner, the perfect body, the perfect bank account. We run faster, we climb higher, but the finish line keeps moving. Even in moments when we achieve what we once dreamed of, there is still a quiet emptiness, a restless whisper that says, not yet, not enough. Keep going. This endless race is exhausting. It leaves us stressed, anxious, and constantly comparing ourselves to others. Deep down, many wonder if peace is even possible in a world so noisy, so demanding, so relentless. But what if the whole idea is wrong? What if peace is not something we earn after fixing ourselves, after checking every box, after finally becoming flawless? What if peace is not out there in the future, but here, waiting quietly in this very moment? Ancient wisdom suggests a radical truth. Peace is not a prize to be won, but a treasure already within us. It does not come from having more, but from needing less. It does not come from constant striving, but from stillness and clarity. Like the sun hidden behind clouds, peace is always present, even when we cannot see it. The problem is not that we lack peace. The problem is that we are too distracted, too burdened, too entangled in stories of fear and desire to notice it, think about the way we live. Many of us carry a script in our minds, a story that defines who we are supposed to be. We tell ourselves, I am this kind of person, or I can never change, or I will only be worthy if I succeed. These labels, these roles, these judgments, they feel solid, permanent, unshakable. Yet if we look closely, we see that they are not fixed at all. Our thoughts, emotions, and even our identities shift like clouds drifting across the sky. We are never the same person from one moment to the next. Beneath all these shifting clouds, there is something deeper, something unchanging, something vast and free. The sky does not fight the clouds. It simply allows them to pass. In the same way, when we loosen our grip on the stories we tell ourselves, when we stop clinging to identities and expectations, a profound freedom begins to emerge. It is not about denying who we are, but about seeing that we are more than the labels we defend. Suffering, then, is not just the pain of loss or the sting of disappointment. It is the endless thirst for things to be different than they are. We crave pleasure. We avoid discomfort. We wait for some future moment when everything will finally be okay. We say, I'll be happy when I get that promotion, or I'll love myself once I look a certain way, or I'll rest when I have enough money. But peace does not live in the future. It only blossoms when we stop fighting reality and begin to accept life as it is, right here, right now. This is not a call to give up on dreams or to settle for less. It is an invitation to stop waging war against the present moment. It is an invitation to breathe, to soften, to allow life to be as it is, and to discover the quiet strength that has been waiting within us all along. This is the doorway we will walk through together. In the chapters ahead, we will look directly at the struggles of modern life stress, money worries, broken relationships, anxiety, fear, and loneliness. We will not run from them, and we will not sugarcoat them. Instead, we will face them honestly, with courage, and with the timeless guidance of Buddhist wisdom. Each pain is real, but each pain also carries within it a seed of freedom. Through the teachings of mindfulness, compassion, forgiveness, and simplicity, we will uncover a way of living that is not about escaping life, but about embracing it fully. The journey is not about becoming someone else. It is about coming home to yourself, to the deep well of peace and clarity that has always been here. Stress has become the invisible weight that so many of us carry every single day. It is there when the alarm clock rings too early, when the inbox is overflowing with unanswered messages, when traffic stretches endlessly before us, when deadlines press down like heavy stones. Even in the quiet moments, it lingers, whispering in the background, reminding us of what we have not yet done, what we might fail at, what we should worry about next. For many people, stress feels less like an occasional visitor and more like an unwanted roommate that has moved in permanently. We tell ourselves it is normal, that this is simply modern life, that everyone is tired, everyone is overwhelmed. But deep inside, we sense the toll it is taking. Our hearts race, our breath shortens, our bodies tighten. Our relationships strain under the pressure. Our joy fades into survival mode. We live, but not fully. We exist, but without peace. When we think of stress, we often imagine it as something outside of us. The demanding boss, the financial struggles, the family responsibilities, the endless news cycle. And yes, these circumstances are real and challenging. But the deeper source of stress does not lie out there in the world. It lies in the way our minds react to what happens. Imagine two people stuck in the same traffic jam. One person fumes, honks, and curses every passing minute. The other turns on the radio, breathes, and accepts that nothing can be done until the cars move. The situation is identical, yet the experience is completely different. This is because stress is not born from events alone, but from the resistance we create in our minds. We want things to be different. We want life to move at our pace. We want people to behave according to our expectations. And when they don't, we tense, we fight, we suffer. Stress, then, is not just the weight of the world pressing on us. It is the inner struggle we add on top of it. The Buddha once described this with a simple yet profound image, being struck by two arrows. The first arrow is the pain of life itself, loss, illness, disappointment, conflict. The second arrow is the one we shoot ourselves. The worry, the resentment, the anger, the why me that adds layers of suffering to what is already difficult. The first arrow is unavoidable. Life will always bring challenges. But the second arrow is optional. When we understand this, we begin to see that stress is not destiny. It is a pattern. And like all patterns, it can be changed. But change does not come from forcing the stress away. In fact, the more we try to push it out of our minds, the more it seems to grow. True transformation begins with awareness. Imagine holding a glass of water. At first, it feels light. But if you hold it for minutes, hours, or even days, it becomes unbearably heavy. Stress works in the same way. Carrying it unconsciously wears us down. But when we pause, when we actually notice the weight we are carrying, something shifts. The act of awareness itself allows us to gently set the glass down. This is the essence of mindfulness, to bring attention to what is happening in the present moment, without judgment, without resistance, without needing it to be different. Instead of drowning in thoughts of what if and what next, we anchor ourselves in what is. And in that simple act of noticing, the grip of stress begins to loosen. Think of the breath. It is always with us, yet we rarely pay attention to it. When stress rises, the breath shortens, quickens, becomes shallow. But when we consciously slow the breath, when we feel the air entering and leaving the body, something remarkable happens. The nervous system begins to calm. The racing thoughts start to soften. The body remembers that it is safe, at least in this moment. Breathing deeply is not a magic cure that erases problems, but it is a doorway. It reminds us that peace is not hidden in some distant future. It can be touched right here, in the space between one breath and the next. Every inhale is a chance to begin again. Every exhale is a chance to release the tension we no longer need to hold. And yet, many people resist this simplicity. They say, "I don't have time to sit and breathe. I have too much to do." But mindfulness is not about adding another task to the endless to-do list. It is about changing the way we do what is already happening. Washing dishes can be a practice. Walking to the car can be a practice. Even answering an email can be a practice. The key is to bring presence to the moment, to notice the sensations, the feelings, the small details we normally overlook. When we are present, stress begins to lose its power. The mind becomes less like a storm-tossed ocean and more like a clear, steady lake. Of course, mindfulness alone does not erase the real pressures of modern life. Bills still arrive. Work still demands. Families still need care. But when we approach these responsibilities from a place of presence rather than panic, everything shifts. Instead of reacting with fear or anger, we respond with clarity. Instead of being crushed by the weight of the future, we take one step at a time. Stress thrives on the story that everything must be solved right now, all at once. Peace grows when we remember that life unfolds moment by moment, and we only ever live in one moment at a time. There is also a deeper truth here. Stress often arises because we measure our worth by our productivity. We believe that unless we are constantly doing, achieving, and proving, we are not enough. This belief fuels a cycle of endless striving. We burn ourselves out chasing an image of success that never quite satisfies. But the wisdom of the Dharma teaches something radical. You are already whole. Your value does not depend on how much you accomplish, how much you own, or how flawless you appear. When we release the idea that we must earn our worth, a great burden falls away. The endless stress of proving ourselves begins to dissolve. What remains is a quieter, gentler way of being. Consider the image of a candle. A candle does not strive to shine. It simply burns with the flame it already carries. In the same way, you do not need to struggle endlessly to prove your light. It is already within you. Stress makes us forget. Mindfulness helps us remember. Compassion helps us trust. And slowly, the frantic race begins to slow into a steady walk. And the walk becomes a presence, and the presence becomes peace. Yet peace is not the absence of challenge. It is the ability to remain steady within the challenge. When storms come, the tree with rigid branches may break, but the tree with flexible branches bends and survives. In the same way, when we cultivate inner flexibility through awareness, we do not collapse under stress. We bend, we adapt, we endure, and in that resilience, a deeper strength is revealed as we explore the nature of stress. It becomes clear that it is not just a personal issue. It is also a collective one. Our entire culture is built on speed, consumption, and comparison. We are bombarded with messages that say, do more, buy more, be more. This constant push feeds an environment where stress thrives. But just as individuals can awaken to a new way of living, so can communities. When we choose simplicity, when we choose compassion, when we choose to value presence over performance, we plant seeds of peace not only in our own lives, but in the world around us. And so, this is where the journey begins. By seeing stress not as an enemy to defeat, but as a teacher. It shows us where we are clinging, where we are resisting, where we are forgetting our own wholeness. It invites us to pause, to breathe, to return. Every stressful moment can become a doorway to awareness. Every heavy day can become a reminder to soften. And with each step, we begin to realize that peace is not waiting on the other side of stress. It is waiting underneath it, ready to be uncovered. When we first begin to look at stress with this kind of clarity, we may feel a sense of relief, but also a sense of doubt. A voice might whisper inside, "Yes, mindfulness sounds good, but my life is too complicated. My problems are too big. Breathing will not pay the bills. Awareness will not fix my marriage. Calmness will not erase the pressure at work. And that voice is not wrong. Breathing alone will not write a check or heal a broken relationship. Awareness alone will not rearrange the economy or change the way your boss treats you. But here is the truth. Without awareness, we collapse under the weight of these challenges. With awareness, we find the strength to carry them with more ease. And sometimes, we even find the wisdom to change them from the inside out. Stress narrows the mind. It makes us see only problems. Awareness widens the view. It shows us options we could not see before. It reminds us that we are more than our fear, more than our struggle, more than this one moment of pain. Imagine standing in a dark room with only a small flashlight. The light reveals a tiny circle on the floor, and in that circle lies a tangled knot of string. In the darkness, the knot looks enormous, overwhelming, impossible to solve. But when the lights are turned on, we see the entire room. The knot is still there, but it is smaller than we imagined, surrounded by space. Awareness is like turning on the light. Stress shrinks when we see it clearly. It is not that the problems disappear, but they stop consuming the entire horizon. We realize we can breathe around them, we can move with them, we can live even as they remain. The Buddha often spoke of the middle way, the path between extremes. Stress arises when we live at the extremes, pushing ourselves too hard or collapsing into avoidance, clinging too tightly or running too far away. The middle way is not about balance in some perfect, static sense. It is about flexibility, about meeting life moment by moment with wisdom and compassion. When we are caught in stress, we often think we have only two options: endure or escape. But the middle way reveals a third option: engage with presence, engage with clarity, engage with kindness. This changes everything. Instead of being trapped in the story of stress, we begin to live from a deeper, calmer place. But there is another dimension we must explore. Stress is not only about the weight of responsibilities or the pace of modern life. At its core, stress often hides a deeper fear, the fear of not being enough. We believe that if we do not keep up, if we do not succeed, if we do not prove ourselves, then we will not be worthy of love, of respect, of belonging. This hidden fear drives us to overwork, to overthink, to overcompensate. And yet, the more we chase worthiness, the more elusive it becomes. The Dharma gently reminds us that this chase is unnecessary. Worthiness is not something we earn. It is something we remember. Every living being has intrinsic dignity, intrinsic value, simply by existing. A tree does not need to justify its place in the forest. A river does not need to prove its right to flow. In the same way, you do not need to prove your right to breathe, to rest, to be. When this truth begins to sink in, the grip of stress begins to weaken at its root. Let us return to the image of the two arrows. The first arrow is life itself, its unpredictability, its losses, its changes. The second arrow is the self-judgment we add. I should be stronger. I should not feel this way. I should have done better. That second arrow often causes more pain than the first. But what happens when, instead of judgment, we offer ourselves compassion? What happens when, in the very moment of stress, we place a gentle hand on the heart and say, "This is hard, but I am doing my best"? This small act of kindness changes the entire experience. The problem may still be there, but the burden is lighter because we are no longer fighting ourselves. Compassion disarms the second arrow dot, and compassion is not weakness. It does not mean ignoring responsibilities or pretending everything is fine. It means we stop making war against ourselves. It means we meet our stress with tenderness instead of hostility. This tenderness opens a new kind of strength, not the strength of forcing or conquering, but the strength of resilience, of patience, of endurance. It is like the difference between a clenched fist and an open hand. Both have power, but one closes down while the other allows connection. When we hold stress with compassion, we stop being trapped by it. We learn to live with openness. Even when life feels heavy, there is also a practice known as radical acceptance. This does not mean liking everything that happens or resigning ourselves to injustice. It means acknowledging reality as it is, without denial, without delay. So much stress comes from arguing with reality. We say, "This should not be happening. This cannot be my life. This must not be true." But when we resist what is, we double our suffering. Radical acceptance invites us to pause, breathe, and say, "Yes, this is here. This is real, and I will meet it with clarity." Acceptance does not freeze us in place. It gives us a stable ground to stand on, from which real change becomes possible. Without acceptance, we are flailing in resistance. With acceptance, we are rooted in truth. Consider a storm. If we deny the storm, we cannot take shelter. If we fight the storm, we exhaust ourselves. But if we acknowledge the storm, we can protect ourselves, we can wait it out, we can even learn from it. Stress is like this. When we accept its presence, we can make wise choices. We can care for ourselves. We can discover the lessons hidden within the storm. And often, we realize that storms pass more quickly when we stop fighting them. It is also important to remember that we are not alone in our struggles. Stress isolates us. It tells us that no one else understands, that we must carry everything by ourselves. But this is not true. Every person you meet has known stress. Every person has carried invisible burdens. When we open our hearts to this truth, something shifts. Our own stress becomes less heavy when we remember the shared nature of human suffering. Compassion for ourselves naturally expands into compassion for others. And when we support one another with kindness, the weight of stress is divided and the strength of peace is multiplied. One of the most powerful ways to practice this is through loving kindness meditation. In this practice, we silently repeat phrases of goodwill, first for ourselves and for others. May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I live with ease. Then, may you be safe. May you be peaceful. May you live with ease. These simple words soften the heart. They remind us that peace is not only for others, but also for us. They dissolve the sharp edges of stress and connect us to the larger field of love that surrounds us. Even a few minutes of this practice can transform the day. As stress begins to loosen its grip, a new kind of space opens within us. It is the space of presence, of stillness, of possibility. In this space, we begin to realize that life is not just something to endure. It is something to experience, moment by moment, with curiosity and wonder. Stress tells us that life is a problem to be solved. Peace reveals that life is a mystery to be lived. The shift is not just mental. It is spiritual. It touches the deepest part of who we are. And so, part 1 closes with this reminder: stress is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It points you back to your breath, to your body, to your heart. It shows you where you are clinging and invites you to let go. It reveals where you have forgotten your worth and invites you to remember. Stress may knock on your door every day, but you do not have to invite it to stay forever. You can meet it with awareness, with compassion, with acceptance. And slowly, the burden becomes lighter. The mind becomes clearer. The heart becomes freer. As we move forward, we will carry these lessons with us. We will see how the same patterns that fuel stress also fuel other struggles, money worries, relationship conflicts, anxiety, fear. Each of these pains is connected. And just as mindfulness and compassion bring relief from stress, they also open the door to freedom in every other area of life. The journey continues, and the next step is waiting. Money is one of the most powerful forces shaping modern life. It promises freedom, security, and happiness. It determines where we live, how we work, and often how we see ourselves. Yet for many people, money is also a constant source of worry and tension. Bills arrive faster than paychecks. Unexpected expenses break fragile budgets. Debt piles up, and with it comes shame, fear, and sleepless nights. Even those who have enough find themselves haunted by the fear of losing it, or the pressure to keep up with others who always seem to have more. Money touches almost every corner of our lives, and because of this, it often becomes the stage on which our deepest anxieties play out. Think about the way conversations around money shape our emotions. A simple number in a bank account can lift our spirits or crush them. A raise at work can make us feel valued, while a financial setback can make us feel like failures. We attach our worth to what we own, what we earn, and what we can show. When money flows, we feel proud and confident. When it is scarce, we feel small, ashamed, and powerless. Yet beneath all these feelings lies a difficult truth. Money itself is not the problem. It is neutral, a tool, a means of exchange. The real suffering comes from the way we relate to it, the way we cling to it, the way we let it define our identity and our sense of security. Modern culture fuels this attachment with relentless precision. Advertising whispers that we are incomplete without the latest phone, the newest car, the bigger house. Social media parades endless images of luxury vacations, glamorous lifestyles, and curated success. The message is clear. More is always better, and without more, you are falling behind. This creates a constant hunger, a thirst that can never be satisfied. Even when we achieve one financial goal, another appears just beyond reach. The cycle never ends. This is why someone can earn 6 figures and still feel poor. This is why billionaires often continue to chase wealth long after their basic needs are met. The craving is not for money itself, but for the illusion of security, the illusion of control, the illusion of being enough. Buddhist teachings call this craving tanha, the thirst that fuels suffering. The thirst for money is one of its clearest forms. We believe that if we just had a little more, then we could finally relax, then we could finally be free. But like salt water to a thirsty man, money cannot satisfy the craving. The more we drink, the thirstier we become. This is not to say that money is unnecessary. We need it for shelter, for food, for healthcare, for stability. But beyond the basics, the promise of money is deceptive. It cannot buy peace of mind. It cannot fill the emptiness inside. It cannot guarantee safety in a world where everything is impermanent. Consider this: wealth can vanish overnight. A market crash, a medical emergency, a sudden job loss, events beyond our control can strip away years of savings. When our identity and security are tied to money, such losses feel like the collapse of our very selves. But when we understand impermanence, we begin to see that no amount of money can make life certain. True security does not come from numbers on a screen. It comes from the inner capacity to meet change with wisdom and resilience. The Buddha compared worldly wealth to dew on the grass in the morning, bright and shimmering, but gone with the first touch of sunlight. To cling to it as if it were eternal is to invite endless disappointment. And yet, this does not mean we should reject money or live in denial of its role. The path of wisdom is not about extremes. It is not about hoarding wealth, nor is it about condemning it. It is about using money skillfully, with awareness, with compassion, with balance. When money is seen as a tool rather than an identity, it loses its power to dominate us. Instead of asking, "How much can I get?" we begin to ask, How can I use what I have in a way that brings peace, not suffering? This shift is subtle but transformative. It turns money from a master into a servant. One of the clearest ways to see this difference is in the practice of generosity. When we cling to money, we fear giving it away. We imagine that giving diminishes us, that it leaves us with less. But when we give with an open heart, we discover the opposite. Generosity expands us. It frees us from the prison of scarcity thinking. It connects us to others. It reminds us that we are part of something larger than ourselves. The Buddha taught that generosity is one of the foundations of a peaceful mind because it cuts directly through greed and fear. Even a small act, sharing a meal, donating a little to someone in need, offering help without expecting repayment, plants seeds of freedom in the heart. We learn that our worth is not measured by what we keep, but by the love we share. This does not mean recklessly giving away everything. It means practicing balance. It means asking, what do I truly need, and what can I release for the benefit of others? In this practice, money becomes less about status and more about service, less about control and more about connection. And as we loosen our grip, the constant anxiety around money begins to soften. We see that abundance is not only about what we have, but about how we experience it. Two people can live with the same income, one in constant stress, the other in gratitude and simplicity. The difference is not the number, but the mindset. Mindfulness, again, becomes a crucial practice here. Just as we can be mindful of the breath, we can be mindful of money. We can notice the emotions that arise when we spend, when we save, when we give. We can see the subtle fear, the pride, the longing. Instead of being driven unconsciously by these emotions, we can pause and choose wisely. Each financial decision becomes an opportunity to practice awareness, to break the cycle of craving, to cultivate peace. And so, the pain of money is not just about empty wallets or unpaid bills. It is about the heavy story we attach to money, that it defines our worth, that it can protect us from impermanence, that it can finally make us whole. The solution is not in chasing endless more, but in changing the story. Money is not salvation. It is a tool. Peace does not come from how much we hold, but from how lightly we hold it. The deeper we look at our relationship with money, the more we see how it shapes our emotions, our choices, and even our relationships with others. Arguments about money are one of the leading causes of conflict in families and marriages. Parents worry about how to provide for their children. Couples fight over spending, saving, or debt. Friends drift apart because of differences in lifestyle. In each of these cases, money is not just paper or numbers. It becomes a symbol of security, love, power, and even identity. And when these symbols clash, the pain runs deep. At the root of this pain lies a common illusion, the belief that money can buy us lasting happiness. We think, if only I had enough to pay off this debt, then I would finally breathe. If only I earned as much as my neighbor, then I would finally feel proud. If only I reached this number in my bank account, then I would finally rest. But notice the pattern. It is always, if only, always in the future, always beyond where we stand right now. And even when we reach one financial milestone, another immediately appears. The mind says, yes, you achieved this, but now you must go further. This endless chase keeps us trapped in dissatisfaction. The Buddha described this cycle as chasing mirages. Imagine walking across a desert, seeing an oasis shimmering in the distance. You run toward it, thirsty and desperate, only to find that it disappears as you approach. So you keep running, exhausted, always hoping the next mirage will be real. Our pursuit of money often mirrors this. We keep running, but the thirst never ends. What if the true oasis is not somewhere out there, but right here, in our ability to stop running and find peace in the present? This is where mindfulness and simplicity come together. Mindfulness allows us to see clearly the emotions tied to money, the fear of not having enough, the pride in having more, the shame in having less. Simplicity invites us to live in a way that reduces these triggers. When we simplify our desires, we reduce the power money has over us. This does not mean rejecting comfort or pleasure. It means distinguishing between what truly nourishes us and what only distracts us. A home filled with love and presence is far richer than a mansion filled with tension and emptiness. A meal shared with gratitude is more satisfying than a table of luxury eaten in resentment. Simplicity reveals that abundance is not measured by what we own, but by how deeply we can appreciate. The teachings also remind us that money, like all things, is impermanent. Markets rise and fall. Jobs come and go. Possessions break, wear out, or get taken away. When we cling to money as our sole source of safety, we build our lives on shifting sand. But when we root our sense of safety in inner qualities, compassion, resilience, wisdom, then we discover a kind of wealth that cannot be stolen or lost. This is what the Buddha called the wealth of the heart. Generosity, kindness, and inner peace are treasures that endure even when external circumstances change. Let us pause and imagine a life shaped not by fear of scarcity, but by trust in sufficiency. Imagine waking up without the constant dread of financial failure. Imagine measuring your day not by how much you earned or spent, but by how present you were, how kind you were, how connected you felt. This is not a fantasy. It is a real possibility when we shift our relationship with money. By practicing mindfulness, generosity, and simplicity, we move from slavery to freedom, from craving to contentment. And yet, the path is not easy. Fear of money runs deep. Many of us were raised with messages of scarcity. There is never enough. You must fight for every dollar. Security comes only from wealth. These messages shape us in childhood and linger into adulthood. Breaking free from them requires patience, courage, and compassion for ourselves. Each small act of awareness, pausing before a purchase, breathing before reacting to a bill, choosing gratitude over comparison, weakens the old conditioning and plants seeds of a new relationship. Generosity, in particular, has the power to transform fear. When we give, even in small ways, we challenge the belief that we live in a world of scarcity. We discover that giving does not leave us empty. It makes us feel full. This fullness is not about numbers in a bank account. It is about the expansion of the heart. We realize that our value does not come from what we hold tightly, but from what we allow to flow through us. A single act of kindness can create ripples far greater than any financial gain. So the question is not, how much money do I need to be happy? The question is, how can I live in a way that money serves peace rather than destroys it? This is the turning point. This is where suffering transforms into wisdom. This is where we step out of the endless cycle of craving and into the freedom of presence. As we learn to hold money more lightly, another truth begins to reveal itself. Much of our stress about money is tied to our relationships. We compare our financial status to others. We measure our worth by what we can provide or what we cannot. We use money as a tool to control, impress, or even withhold. These patterns not only hurt us, they hurt the people we love. To truly heal our relationship with money, we must also heal the ways it entangles with love, family, and connection, which leads us naturally into the next step of our journey, relationships themselves. If money reveals our fears about survival and worth, relationships reveal our fears about love and belonging. Just as we cling to wealth to feel safe, we cling to people to feel whole. And just as money can become a source of endless anxiety, so too can relationships become a battlefield of unmet expectations, comparisons, and pain. In the next part, we will turn directly toward this tender ground. we will explore how love, attachment, and misunderstanding shape so much of our suffering, and how the wisdom of compassion and presence can open a path to healing. Relationships are at the heart of human life. From the moment we are born, we are shaped by the bonds we share with others' parents, siblings, friends, lovers, colleagues, and communities. These connections bring joy, comfort, and meaning. They remind us that we are not alone, that life is richer when shared. Yet at the same time, relationships are also one of the greatest sources of pain. Misunderstandings, conflicts, betrayals, and disappointments cut deeply, often leaving scars that last for years. Love, which has the power to heal, can also become the stage for suffering. And many of us find ourselves asking, if love is meant to bring happiness, why does it so often bring heartache? One reason is that we approach relationships with expectations shaped by longing and fear. We carry within us the belief that another person will complete us, that their love will heal the wounds we cannot face alone. We dream of the perfect partner, the flawless friend, the family that always supports us. But reality is never this neat. People are imperfect. They carry their own wounds, their own fears, their own misunderstandings. When two imperfect beings come together expecting perfection, disappointment is inevitable. The same love that once felt like a dream can turn into a battlefield of unmet needs and unspoken resentments. Think about the subtle ways this plays out. A couple argues not because of the small issue at hand, but because of unspoken fears beneath it, the fear of being unloved, unappreciated, unseen. A friendship dissolves not because of one disagreement, but because of accumulated expectations and silent comparisons. A parent and child grow distant, not because they stop caring, but because each clings too tightly to the story of how the other should be. In all of these cases, pain arises not only from what is said or done, but from the weight of desire and attachment placed upon the bond. Buddhist teachings speak of attachment as a key source of suffering. When we attach to a person as if they are the source of our happiness, we place an impossible burden on them. No human being can fulfill all our needs, erase all our fears, or guarantee eternal love. When they fail, as they inevitably must, we feel betrayed. But the betrayal is not only theirs, it is also ours, because we gave them the role of savior. Attachment is like tying a rope around someone and pulling them toward us. The harder we pull, the more resistance arises. Love becomes entangled with control, fear, and dependency. True love, by contrast, is more like an open hand. It does not grasp or demand. It allows freedom. It celebrates presence. It honors the other as they are, not as we wish them to be. But letting go of attachment is not easy. We confuse it with indifference, with not caring. Yet the two are very different. Indifference closes the heart. Non-attachment opens it wider. Non-attachment says, I love you, but I do not need to control you. I care for you, but I do not depend on you for my worth. I honor you, but I do not cling to you. This kind of love is fearless because it does not rest on fragile conditions. It is not shaken when the other changes because it flows from a deeper source within. To understand this more clearly, imagine holding a bird in your hands. If you grip too tightly, you harm the bird and yourself. If you hold too loosely, the bird may fly away. But if you hold gently, with care yet without force, the bird can rest peacefully. Relationships are like this. Too much grasping suffocates them. Too much neglect weakens them. Gentle presence allows them to thrive. The art of love is learning this gentle holding. Yet in the midst of real life, this is difficult. People do hurt us. Words are spoken that cannot be unsaid. Promises are broken. Trust is betrayed. These wounds cut deeply because they strike at the core of our longing to be safe, seen, and loved. When we are hurt in relationships, the natural response is to defend, to withdraw, or to strike back. We build walls. We nurse grudges. We tell ourselves stories about villains and victims. And in doing so, we carry the pain long after the event has passed. The wound becomes part of our identity. I was betrayed. I was abandoned. I was rejected. These stories shape how we see others and ourselves, often closing us off from the possibility of healing. This is where forgiveness becomes essential, not as a gift to the other, but as a release for ourselves. Forgiveness does not mean excusing harm or pretending it did not happen. It means choosing not to carry the burden forever. It means loosening the knot of anger and resentment that tightens our hearts. Imagine carrying a heavy stone everywhere you go. At first, it feels necessary, even protective. But after years, it only exhausts you. Forgiveness is the act of setting the stone down. The other person may or may not change, but you free yourself from being chained to their actions. This freedom is not weakness. It is courage. The Buddha once said that holding on to anger is like holding a hot coal with the intent to throw it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. In relationships, anger often feels justified. But when we cling to it, we burn ourselves daily. Forgiveness is how we drop the coal. It is how we stop adding suffering to suffering. And as we release anger, we make space for compassion, not only for others, but for ourselves. We realize that we too are imperfect. We too have hurt others. We too long to be forgiven. This recognition softens the heart and deepens the capacity to love. Love built on non-attachment and compassion looks very different from the love shaped by fear and craving. It is not about constant reassurance or perfect harmony. It is about presence. It is about being fully here with another human being, seeing them clearly, accepting them as they are, and walking together with kindness. This kind of love does not eliminate conflict, but it transforms it. When disagreements arise, they become opportunities for deeper understanding rather than battles for dominance. When differences appear, they are honored rather than feared. Love becomes less about possession and more about connection. And so, the pain of relationships, betrayal, disappointment, conflict points us back to the same truth revealed by stress and money. Suffering comes not from the existence of challenges, but from the way we cling, grasp, and resist. When we soften that grasp, when we meet one another with openness rather than control, the burden of relationships transforms into the gift of connection. This transformation begins not with others, but with ourselves. Only when we can sit with our own hearts, with kindness and clarity, can we offer the same to those we love. As we continue to explore the challenges of relationships, it becomes clear that the real struggle is not always with the other person. It is often with ourselves. When we enter a relationship, we do not enter as blank slates. We bring with us years of experiences, unhealed wounds, childhood conditioning, and unconscious expectations. These hidden layers shape how we see and respond to others. A simple comment can trigger old memories of rejection. A small disagreement can awaken a deep fear of abandonment. Without realizing it, we react not only to the present moment, but also to the echoes of the past. This is why relationships can feel so intense, so raw, because they stir the deepest parts of our being. The Buddha taught that each of us carries mental formations, seeds planted by past thoughts, words, and actions. Some seeds are of love, kindness, and joy. Others are of fear, anger, and sorrow. In relationships, these seeds are constantly watered. When someone offers kindness, the seeds of love within us grow. When someone criticizes us, the seeds of anger or insecurity awaken. The challenge is that we often respond unconsciously, without seeing which seeds are being activated. We lash out or withdraw, only to regret it later. Mindfulness allows us to pause and notice. Ah, the seed of anger has been touched. The seed of fear has been stirred. With this awareness, we can choose not to act on them immediately. We can breathe, we can hold the feeling, and we can decide how to respond with wisdom instead of habit. This pause is powerful. Imagine a fire sparked by a single match. If we rush to add fuel, the flames roar out of control. But if we pause, if we choose not to feed it, the flame burns out. Conflict in relationships often works the same way. A single harsh word can ignite anger on both sides. But when one person pauses, breathes, and refuses to feed the flame, the fire loses power. This is not weakness, it is strength. It is the strength of refusing to let anger dictate the course of love. Compassion plays a central role here. When we see that the other person, like us, is shaped by their own wounds, their own fears, their own seeds, we begin to soften. Instead of asking, "Why are they hurting me?" we ask, "What pain are they carrying that makes them act this way?" This shift does not excuse harmful behavior, but it opens the door to understanding. And understanding is the soil in which healing grows. Compassion turns the battlefield of relationships into a place of learning, a place where both people can grow together. But compassion must include ourselves as well. Many of us endure toxic dynamics because we believe that love means sacrifice without limit. We forgive endlessly, but we do not protect our own hearts. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that compassion without wisdom becomes enabling, while wisdom without compassion becomes cold. True love balances both. Sometimes the most compassionate act is to set a boundary, to say, "I care for you, but I will not allow this harm to continue." Boundaries are not walls to shut others out. They are gates to protect the garden of the heart, allowing what nurtures love to enter while keeping out what destroys it. In this way, relationships become healthier, more honest, more sustainable. Another teaching that illuminates relationships is the understanding of impermanence. Everything changes. People grow, emotions shift, circumstances evolve. Yet many of us cling to the idea that relationships should remain exactly as they were at their happiest moment. We resist change. We fear loss. And in this resistance, suffering multiplies. But when we embrace impermanence, we see relationships not as possessions to hold forever, but as living, changing journeys. Love becomes less about clinging and more about cherishing. We savor moments of joy while they last, and we release gracefully when they pass. This perspective allows us to love more deeply because we no longer live in fear of what will end. We live in gratitude for what is here now. Think of a flower in bloom. We know it will not last forever, but that does not stop us from admiring its beauty. In fact, its impermanence makes it more precious. Relationships are like this. When we stop demanding permanence, we begin to appreciate the fleeting, fragile, beautiful moments that make them sacred. A smile, a kind word, a shared laugh, these are jewels to be treasured, not guarantees to be hoarded. Love, seen through the lens of impermanence, becomes freer, lighter, and more alive. And what about loneliness? The ache that comes when relationships end, or when we feel unseen, even in the presence of others. Loneliness is one of the deepest forms of suffering in modern life. Surrounded by millions, connected by technology, many still feel isolated, unknown, unloved. The Dharma teaches that loneliness often arises when we are cut off from ourselves. We look to others to fill a void that only inner presence can touch. When we are disconnected from our own hearts, no amount of company can soothe us. But when we are at home within ourselves, we can find peace even in solitude. This is why meditation, silence, and mindful presence are so important. They root us in our own being. They remind us that we are never truly alone, because the very breath within us is a companion, steady and faithful. When we bring this sense of inner wholeness into relationships, they change. Instead of clinging to others out of fear of loneliness, we connect out of abundance. We share love not because we lack, but because we overflow. This kind of love is liberating. It does not imprison either person. It allows both to grow, to evolve, to be free. So the journey through relationships teaches us many truths. That attachment brings suffering. That forgiveness brings freedom. That compassion brings healing. That impermanence brings appreciation. And that self-connection brings peace. These are not abstract ideas. They are living practices. Every argument, every moment of tenderness, every goodbye is a chance to embody them. Relationships are not obstacles to the spiritual path. They are the path itself. In learning to love wisely, we learn to awaken. And as we carry these lessons, we see the larger pattern unfolding. Stress, money, relationships, each reveals the same root, the human tendency to cling, to grasp, to demand certainty in an uncertain world. Each also reveals the same doorway to freedom, awareness, compassion, letting go. In the next part, we will turn to another form of suffering that touches nearly everyone in modern life: anxiety. If relationships expose our longing for love, anxiety exposes our longing for safety. Just as we cling to people for comfort, we cling to control for protection. Anxiety thrives on what if, on the mind's endless attempt to predict and prevent every danger. In Part 4, we will step into the restless landscape of anxiety, and we will explore how the same wisdom that heals stress, money, and relationships can also bring peace to the storm of worry. Anxiety is like a shadow that follows millions of people in modern life. It shows up in the middle of the night when sleep should come, whispering questions that have no answers. It arrives before a meeting, before a conversation, before opening an email, tightening the chest and quickening the breath. It lingers in the background of daily life, a quiet unease that says, something could go wrong at any moment. Unlike stress, which often comes from specific external pressures, anxiety is more subtle, more pervasive. It is not always tied to one clear cause. Sometimes it arises even when nothing is obviously wrong, making us wonder if we are broken inside. But the truth is that anxiety is not proof of brokenness. It is proof of being human in a world that constantly feeds uncertainty. The modern world magnifies this uncertainty. News cycles broadcast disasters from every corner of the globe. Social media compares us not just to our neighbors, but to millions of strangers. Economic systems rise and fall with little warning. Technology advances so quickly that we barely catch up before it changes again. In such a world, the mind naturally tries to protect us by scanning for danger. But instead of finding peace, it often gets stuck in endless loops. What if I fail? What if I get sick? What if they don't like me? What if something terrible happens tomorrow? These what-ifs create a prison with invisible bars. Even when nothing is wrong, we live as if disaster is just around the corner. Asterisk. The Buddha spoke of this restless state of mind as a form of suffering rooted in craving and aversion. We crave certainty, safety, and control. We want life to follow our plans. We want assurance that nothing bad will happen. But reality does not bend to our wishes. Life is uncertain by nature. When we resist this truth, anxiety grows. The mind tries to fight impermanence by imagining every possible outcome, as if worry itself could protect us. But worry does not prevent danger. It only drains the present moment of peace. It is like carrying an umbrella every day, even indoors, fearing rain that may never fall. The umbrella does not stop the rain. It only burdens the arms. To understand anxiety more deeply, we must see that it often arises from the gap between what is and what we imagine. The present moment may be safe, yet the mind leaps into the future, creating storms that do not exist. We suffer twice, once from reality and once from imagination. The Buddha described this as suffering about suffering. It is not the event itself, but our fear of it, that magnifies the pain. In this way, anxiety is like being chased by our own shadow. The more we run, the more it follows, but there is hope. If anxiety is born from resisting uncertainty, then peace is born from embracing it. This does not mean enjoying uncertainty, but learning to live with it without fear. The practice of mindfulness is again the key. When anxiety pulls us into the future, mindfulness anchors us in the present. Instead of drowning in what if, we return to what is. The breath is safe. The ground beneath us is steady. The body, though tense, is alive. The present moment is rarely as terrifying as the mind imagines. By coming back again and again, we weaken anxiety's grip. Consider the practice of naming. When anxiety arises, instead of saying, "I am anxious," we say, "Anxiety is here." This small shift creates space. We are not anxiety. We are the awareness noticing anxiety. The storm may rage, but we are not the storm. We are the sky that holds it. This perspective loosens the identification that makes anxiety feel overwhelming. It allows us to observe with curiosity rather than panic. What does anxiety feel like in the body? Where does it live? What stories does it tell? In observing, we create distance. And in distance, we find freedom. The body, too, holds wisdom in calming anxiety. When the mind races, the body tenses. Shoulders rise, jaws tighten, stomachs knot. Left unnoticed, this tension fuels the cycle of fear. But when we bring gentle awareness to the body, relaxing the shoulders, unclenching the jaw, breathing into the belly, we interrupt the loop. The nervous system begins to shift from fight or flight into rest and digest. Slowly, the body signals to the mind, it is safe. This is why practices such as yoga, mindful walking, and breathing exercises are so effective. They do not erase uncertainty, but they remind us that safety exists in the here and now. Yet, anxiety is persistent because it often hides under deeper layers. At its core, anxiety reveals our discomfort with vulnerability. We want guarantees that life cannot give. We want control over what is uncontrollable. We want permanence in a world defined by impermanence. The teachings invite us to see that anxiety is not an enemy, but a teacher. It shows us where we cling too tightly to certainty. It reveals the places we are unwilling to trust the flow of life. When we stop fighting anxiety and instead listen to its message, it transforms. It becomes a doorway to deeper wisdom, a call to let go of illusions of control. Imagine standing at the edge of the ocean. Waves rise and fall. Some are gentle, some are fierce. You cannot stop the waves. You cannot predict each one. But you can learn to surf. You can learn to trust the water, to balance, to flow. Anxiety asks us to learn the same skill with life. We cannot stop uncertainty, but we can learn to ride its waves with balance, presence, and trust. This is not about erasing fear, but about living fully even with fear present. Generosity and compassion also play a role in easing anxiety. When we are consumed by fear, we turn inward, shrinking into ourselves. But when we reach out to others, when we connect, when we care, something shifts. Anxiety thrives in isolation. Connection dissolves it. A kind word, a shared meal, an act of service, these small gestures remind us that we are not alone, that life is larger than our private fears. Compassion opens the heart, and in that opening, anxiety softens. Finally, we must speak of faith, not blind belief, but a deep trust in the unfolding of life. Faith is the courage to live without guarantees, to step into the unknown with openness. It is the quiet confidence that whatever comes, we can meet it with presence and wisdom. This faith is not about hoping for perfect outcomes. It is about trusting our capacity to face imperfect outcomes. It is about knowing that peace is possible, even in uncertainty. This trust does not eliminate anxiety instantly, but it plants a seed of calm that grows each time we return to the present. And so, anxiety, like stress, money, and relationships, points us back to the same lesson. Let go of clinging, return to the present, live with compassion. The storms may not disappear, but we can learn to stand in them with steadiness. Anxiety becomes less a prison and more a teacher, less a curse and more a path to awakening. Anxiety often feels like an endless loop, a cycle we cannot escape. The mind imagines a problem, the body reacts with tension, the heart races, and then the mind notices these reactions and interprets them as proof that something is wrong. This feedback loop strengthens itself with every term. Many people feel trapped inside it, as if anxiety is their permanent identity. But Buddhist wisdom reminds us, no state of mind is permanent. Every thought, every emotion, every sensation arises and passes away. Anxiety, too, is impermanent. It may visit often, but it does not define who we are. We are not the storm. We are the sky that holds the storm. This understanding is liberating. It shows us that we do not need to eliminate anxiety to find peace. We only need to see it clearly, to hold it gently, and to allow it to pass. One practical way to do this is through the practice of mindful observation. When anxiety arises, we do not need to resist or deny it. We can name it. Anxiety is here. We can feel where it lives in the body, the tightness in the chest, the knot in the stomach, the restlessness in the legs. Instead of pushing it away, we breathe into it, creating space around it. We let it be without feeding it. This simple act of awareness interrupts the cycle. Anxiety may still be present, but it no longer controls us. We are no longer drowning in it. We are observing it from the shore. Over time, this practice reveals something surprising. Beneath anxiety lies energy. The same energy that fuels fear can also fuel creativity, compassion, and presence. When we stop fighting anxiety, its raw energy becomes available for transformation. It is like harnessing the power of fire. Uncontrolled, fire burns the house down. Guided wisely, fire warms, nourishes, and sustains life. Anxiety, when met with mindfulness, can become a source of strength. It sharpens awareness, deepens compassion, and teaches us humility in the face of life's uncertainty. Another practice that eases anxiety is loving kindness meditation. By repeating simple phrases, may I be safe, may I be peaceful, may I live with ease, we send gentle energy toward ourselves. These words may feel awkward at first, especially when anxiety is strong. But over time, they soften the heart. They remind us that we are not enemies to be conquered, but beings worthy of kindness. As loving kindness grows, the harsh inner critic that fuels anxiety begins to quiet. Instead of saying, "Why am I like this? What is wrong with me?" we begin to say, "This is hard, and I am doing my best." This shift from judgment to compassion is profound. It transforms anxiety from a battlefield into a place of healing. Community is also essential. Anxiety isolates us. It convinces us that we are alone, that no one else feels the same way. But this is not true. Almost everyone knows the taste of anxiety, even if they hide it behind a mask of confidence. When we share our struggles, when we speak honestly about our fears, we discover connection. We realize that our suffering is part of the human story. This shared recognition lightens the load. We stop carrying it alone. In Buddhist tradition, this is the power of Sangha, the community of practitioners walking the path together. Alone, we may feel weak. Together, we discover strength. Still, we must acknowledge that anxiety does not vanish quickly. It may return again and again. But each time it returns, we have a choice. We can fall back into the cycle of fear, or we can practice presence. Every return is an opportunity to deepen our wisdom. In this way, anxiety becomes less of a curse and more of a teacher. It shows us where we still cling to control, where we still resist impermanence, where we still forget compassion. And each time we remember, we grow. In the end, the message is clear. Anxiety is not proof of failure. It is proof of being alive in a world that is uncertain. The path is not about eliminating anxiety forever. It is about learning to live fully, even when anxiety is present. It is about trusting that peace is possible here and now, not in some distant future where all fear has disappeared. This trust grows each time we breathe, each time we practice, each time we let go. As we leave this part of the journey, we carry forward several truths. Anxiety arises from the mind's resistance to uncertainty. It thrives on what if, but it weakens in the presence of what is. Mindfulness anchors us in the present. Compassion softens the inner critic. Community dissolves isolation. And impermanence reminds us that no storm lasts forever. With these tools, we can meet anxiety not with despair, but with courage. We can live not in fear of the unknown, but in trust of our capacity to face it. And this naturally leads us to the next step. If anxiety exposes our fear of the future, then the next layer of suffering reveals something even deeper: our struggle with identity. Who am I? Am I my thoughts, my roles, my achievements, my failures? Just as we cling to money, relationships, and safety, we also cling to the stories we tell about ourselves. These stories, often rigid and limiting, create another form of suffering. In Part 5, we will turn to the fragile construction of self, and we will explore how Buddhist wisdom helps us see beyond the masks and labels to discover a freedom that is far greater than any identity we cling to. From childhood, we are taught to answer a simple question: who are you? At first, the answers are playful: our name, our age, maybe our favorite color or toy. But as we grow, the answers become heavier. We say, I am a student. I am an employee. I am a parent. I am successful. I am a failure. Slowly, our identity becomes woven from roles, achievements, appearances, and judgments. We wear these labels as if they are the truth of who we are. We cling to them for safety, for belonging, for a sense of meaning. Yet at the same time, these labels also become cages. They confine us. They limit us. They make us believe that we are smaller than the vastness of our true being. Consider how often we define ourselves by comparison. I am better than this person, but worse than that one. Or by permanence. I have always been like this, and I always will be. These stories feel safe, but they are not true. Because if we look closely, we see that everything we think defines us is always changing. The body ages. The career shifts. The roles evolve. Even our personality, the things we say are just who I am, changes over time. Who you were at 10 is not who you were at 20 or 40 or who you will be tomorrow. Identity is not fixed. It is fluid, shifting, impermanent. The Buddha used a powerful image to describe this. The self is like a bundle of sticks tied together. What we call I is not one solid, unchanging thing. It is a collection of parts, thoughts, feelings, memories, perceptions, habits, all held together by clinging. When we loosen the knot, we see that there is no permanent core inside. This does not mean we do not exist. It means we exist differently than we imagine. We are not a fixed object. We are a living process, always in motion, like a river flowing. The river is real, but it is never the same water twice. In the same way, we are real, but never the same self from one moment to the next. This truth can feel unsettling at first. We want a solid identity to hold on to. We want to say, "This is me, unchanging, reliable, eternal." But clinging to a fixed self creates suffering. When our identity is tied to success, we collapse when failure comes. When it is tied to youth, we despair as we age. When it is tied to roles, mother, father, partner, we feel lost when those roles shift or end. The suffering is not in the change itself, but in our refusal to accept it. We resist impermanence because we believe it threatens who we are. But what if impermanence is not a threat, but a doorway to freedom? Imagine a sky filled with clouds. Some clouds are bright, some are dark, some are heavy with rain. They come and go, constantly shifting. If we identify with the clouds, we feel unstable, always changing. But if we realize we are the sky, vast and open, we see that the clouds are just passing guests. They do not define the sky. In the same way, our thoughts, emotions, roles, and labels are like clouds. They come and go. They do not define our deepest essence. Beneath them is the spaciousness of awareness itself, unchanging and free. When we discover this, the grip of identity begins to loosen. We stop clinging to the clouds and we begin to rest in the sky. This shift changes the way we live. When someone criticizes us, we no longer collapse because we see that the criticism is just another passing cloud. When we fail, we no longer despair because failure is not who we are. It is just an event in the river of life. When we succeed, we no longer cling because we know success too will pass. We become less defensive, less fearful, less desperate to prove ourselves. Instead, we live with more openness, more honesty, more freedom. This is the gift of seeing through the illusion of a fixed self. But the illusion of identity is strong, especially in modern culture. We are constantly told to define ourselves by our careers, by our possessions, by our achievements. Social media amplifies this pressure, turning identity into a performance. We curate images, stories, and posts to present a version of ourselves we hope others will admire. But beneath the performance, many feel exhausted, disconnected, and hollow, because deep down, we know the performance is not the whole truth. It is only a mask, and no mask, no matter how polished, can bring lasting peace. The Dharma offers a different path. Instead of performing identity, we are invited to rest in presence. Instead of defending labels, we are invited to release them. This does not mean abandoning our roles or responsibilities. It means holding them lightly. It means remembering that we are more than any single role, more than any single story. We can be a parent without being only a parent. We can be a worker without being only a worker. We can be successful or unsuccessful without those words defining our worth. When we see this clearly, life becomes lighter. We can play our roles fully with love and care without being trapped by them. So the pain of identity lies in clinging. We cling to labels, to stories, to masks, believing they will keep us safe. But instead, they keep us small. The solution is to see through the illusion not by denying who we are, but by expanding beyond it. We are not just the clouds. We are the sky. We are not just the riverbank. We are the flow. This recognition does not make us less. It makes us infinite. It frees us to live authentically, without fear of losing who we think we are. When we cling tightly to identity, even the smallest challenge can feel like a threat. A criticism at work, a conflict in a relationship, or a failure in a project does not just feel like an event, it feels like an attack on who we are. That is why people become defensive so quickly, why arguments escalate, why shame can linger long after a mistake. We believe, I am my success, I am my failure, I am my reputation. But when identity is seen as fixed, every change feels like life or death. We fight to protect it, even when protecting it causes harm to ourselves and others. Buddhist practice invites us to step back and ask, who is this I we defend so fiercely? When we sit quietly and observe the mind, we begin to see thoughts arising and passing, feelings appearing and fading, roles shifting like clothes we put on and take off. The I is not one solid thing. It is a collection of moments, constantly changing. This insight does not erase individuality, it frees it. Instead of being trapped in a rigid identity, we see ourselves as fluid, open, interconnected. We discover that we are not separate islands, but waves in a vast ocean of life. This understanding softens the ego. It allows us to meet life with humility and compassion. When we see that our own self is impermanent and interdependent, we realize that others are the same. Their anger, their pride, their mistakes are also passing clouds, not permanent truths. This perspective makes forgiveness easier. It makes kindness more natural. It helps us connect with others not as fixed characters in a drama, but as fellow travelers on the path of change. At the same time, loosening identity also relieves the pressure we place on ourselves. Many people live with the silent burden of always needing to be someone, the perfect parent, the successful professional, the admired friend. But when we see that these roles are not who we truly are, the pressure lightens. We can play our roles with care, but without the desperate need for perfection. We can allow ourselves to grow, to change, to fail, to begin again. This flexibility is a form of freedom. Consider a tree in the forest. It grows and changes with the seasons. Leaves appear, fall away, return. Branches break, new ones sprout. Yet through all these changes, the tree remains part of the forest, rooted, alive, connected. In the same way, our lives are in constant motion, but we remain part of the great web of existence. We are not defined by a single season, a single success, a single failure. We are more than the labels we cling to. We are the living process itself. This insight has practical power. When we face challenges, instead of saying, "This means I am a failure," we can say, "This is just one moment in the flow of my life." When someone criticizes us, instead of collapsing, we can say, "This is their perspective, not my permanent truth." When we succeed, instead of clinging, we can enjoy it, knowing it too will pass. This flexibility allows us to live with more ease. It turns life from a rigid performance into a flowing dance. But there is a deeper layer, beyond roles and labels, beyond even the shifting thoughts and feelings. There is awareness itself, the clear, open space in which all experience arises. This awareness is not bound by identity. It is not touched by success or failure. It is like the sky vast, unchanging, limitless. When we rest in awareness, we discover a peace that does not depend on who we are or what we achieve. It is a peace that was always there, waiting beneath the noise. This is the heart of Buddhist wisdom. Freedom does not come from becoming a better version of me. It comes from seeing through the illusion of me altogether. This may sound abstract, but it is deeply practical. Each time we let go of a story about who we should be, we taste this freedom. Each time we pause and rest in awareness, we experience a peace beyond identity. Over time, this becomes our refuge. Instead of defending a fragile self, we live from the spaciousness of being itself. From this place, life becomes lighter, relationships become gentler, and suffering loses its grip. And yet, the illusion of identity is persistent. It returns again and again. That is why practice is essential. Through mindfulness, meditation, and compassion, we remind ourselves daily of the truth. We train the mind to loosen its grip. We learn to live not as a fixed character, but as a flowing process. Slowly, the old patterns lose power, and the freedom of non-attachment grows. As we close this part, we can see the pattern clearly. Stress, money, relationships, anxiety, and now identity all reveal the same root, clinging. We cling to control, to wealth, to love, to certainty, to self. And in every case, clinging creates suffering. The solution, too, is always the same: awareness, compassion, letting go. This is the universal path of freedom. And so, we turn to the next step. If clinging to identity traps us in a narrow sense of self, then clinging to the past and the hurts we carry traps us even more. Many people live with unhealed wounds, regrets, and grudges that weigh heavily on the heart. These unresolved burdens color every relationship, every choice, every moment. To move toward true peace, we must face the challenge of forgiveness, not only of others, but of ourselves. In Part 6, we will open the door to this tender work. We will explore how letting go of the past with compassion and courage can free us from chains we have carried far too long. The past has a way of clinging to us. A harsh word spoken years ago still echoes in the mind. A betrayal long finished still burns in the heart. A mistake we made decades earlier still whispers shame whenever we remember it. Even when the events are over, the weight remains. We carry old grudges, regrets, and guilt as if they were heavy stones in a bag strapped to our shoulders. Every step forward becomes harder, not because the road is steep, but because of the weight we refuse to set down. Forgiveness, then, is not just an act of kindness toward others. It is an act of liberation for ourselves. It is how we set the bag down. It is how we walk freely again. Yet forgiveness is one of the hardest practices to embrace. When we are hurt, the mind clings to anger as if it were protection. If I stay angry, I will not be hurt again. When we feel shame, the mind clings to self-punishment as if it were justice. If I keep suffering, maybe I can make up for my mistake. In both cases, the mind believes that holding on keeps us safe. But in truth, holding on keeps us imprisoned. Anger is like a fire we hold in our own hands. Shame is like a chain we wrap around our own heart. Forgiveness is not about excusing the harm or forgetting what happened. It is about refusing to carry the fire and the chains any longer. The Buddha offered a clear image. Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. The longer we hold it, the more we burn ourselves. Forgiveness is the act of releasing the coal. It does not mean the fire never burned us. It does not mean the scar disappears. It means we stop adding pain to pain. We stop punishing ourselves over and over for what has already happened. We choose freedom instead of bondage. But forgiveness does not happen all at once. It is not a single decision that erases the past. It is a practice, a process, a journey of softening the heart. At first, the mind resists. They do not deserve my forgiveness. I do not deserve my own forgiveness. But slowly, with patience, we begin to see that forgiveness is not about what is deserved. It is about what is needed. And what is needed is peace. Not someday in the distant future, but here and now. One way to begin is by acknowledging the wound honestly. Many people try to skip this step. They say, "It does not matter. I am fine. I am over it." But denial is not forgiveness. To forgive, we must first admit the pain. We must allow ourselves to feel it fully: the anger, the sorrow, the disappointment. Only then can we release it. Forgiveness is not suppression. It is transformation. Like compost turning waste into nourishment, forgiveness turns pain into wisdom, wounds into compassion. Another way is through perspective. When someone harms us, we see only the surface act. But when we look deeper, we often see their suffering, their ignorance, their confusion. This does not excuse the harm, but it explains it. A person who lashes out with cruelty is often carrying their own unhealed wounds. A person who betrays is often blinded by fear or desire. Recognizing this does not mean we accept the harm, but it allows us to release the poison of hatred. We see that the harm came from ignorance, and ignorance is part of the human condition. Just as we have made mistakes out of confusion, so have they. Compassion grows when we see this clearly. Forgiveness also requires boundaries. To forgive does not mean allowing continued harm. We can release anger while still protecting ourselves. We can let go of hatred while still saying no to abuse. This balance of compassion and wisdom is essential. Forgiveness without boundaries is weakness. Boundaries without forgiveness are bitterness. But when both work together, the heart becomes strong and free. We can move forward without carrying poison and without inviting more poison in. Perhaps the hardest forgiveness of all is self-forgiveness. Many people live with quiet guilt that never leaves. They replay their mistakes again and again, as if rehearsing punishment could undo the past. They tell themselves, "I should have known better. I should have done better." But the truth is that we acted with the understanding we had at the time. If we knew better, we would have done better. Guilt may remind us to learn, but once the lesson is learned, continuing to suffer serves no purpose. Self-forgiveness is the recognition that we are human imperfect, growing, stumbling, learning. To forgive ourselves is to allow ourselves to continue walking, to continue growing, to continue offering love. Imagine carrying a broken vase. It slips, it shatters. You cannot put it back together by blaming yourself forever. You cannot reverse time. But you can sweep the pieces. You can learn to hold more carefully. You can choose a new vase. Life is the same. We cannot undo the past, but we can learn from it. We can care more wisely in the future. We can create new beauty. Forgiveness is what allows us to turn the page. And so, forgiveness is not about the past. It is about the future. It is about refusing to let old wounds dictate who we are today. It is about creating space for new love, new joy, new freedom. Without forgiveness, we live chained to old stories, unable to move forward. With forgiveness, we live lighter, freer, more open to the possibilities of the present moment. Forgiveness is often misunderstood as something we do once and then forget about. But in reality, it is a practice we return to again and again, like watering a plant that needs constant care. Old memories resurface. Old wounds reopen. The mind whispers, "Remember what they did. Remember how you failed." In these moments, forgiveness is not lost. It is simply calling us back. Each time we soften the heart again, each time we release the coal again, each time we breathe into compassion again, forgiveness grows deeper. It becomes less an act we force and more a natural way of being. Over time, forgiveness transforms from something we do into something we are. Stories from Buddhist tradition illustrate this well. One tells of a monk who was beaten and robbed by bandits. Later, when asked if he hated them, he replied, "No, I feel compassion for them. They harm me because they are lost in ignorance. I wish them freedom from such darkness." This response is not weakness. It is strength beyond measure. Hatred would only have multiplied suffering. Compassion cut through it. The monk did not excuse the harm, but he refused to carry its poison. This is the heart of forgiveness, not denial, not weakness, but freedom. And yet, forgiveness is not only about great wrongs. It is also about the small daily cuts we collect. The rude driver, the careless coworker, the impatient partner. These small irritations, when left unaddressed, pile up and harden the heart. Forgiveness in daily life keeps the heart soft. It is the gentle practice of releasing irritation before it becomes bitterness. It is the choice to smile instead of scowl, to breathe instead of snap, to let go instead of cling. These small acts of forgiveness prepare us for the larger ones. They train the heart to stay open. There is also a collective dimension to forgiveness. Communities, nations, and even humanity itself carry wounds of injustice, violence, and division. Without forgiveness, these wounds harden into cycles of hatred and revenge that span generations. Forgiveness on a collective level does not erase history, but it creates the possibility of healing. It says, "We will not be chained forever by the pain of the past. We will build something new." This is not easy, but it is necessary if peace is to flourish in the world. In this way, the personal practice of forgiveness ripples outward, touching families, communities, and even societies. So how do we walk this path of forgiveness in daily life? We begin small. We notice when resentment rises. We breathe. We soften. We remind ourselves, holding on hurts me more than it hurts them. We practice loving kindness, repeating the phrases, "May I be safe. May you be safe. May we both live with ease." We set healthy boundaries while releasing hatred. We learn to say, "This happened, it hurt, but it will not define me forever." Slowly, the chains begin to loosen. Slowly, the heart begins to open. Self-forgiveness, too, becomes a daily practice. Each time we remember a mistake, we can choose not to replay it as punishment, but to see it as a lesson. We can place a hand on the heart and whisper, "I forgive myself. I am learning. I am growing." This kindness may feel awkward at first, especially for those used to harsh self-criticism. But with repetition, it becomes natural. The heart begins to trust its own compassion. The mind begins to believe that it is worthy of peace. And with this self-forgiveness, we are better able to forgive others. Because when we no longer demand perfection from ourselves, we stop demanding it from those around us. Forgiveness, then, is not a gift given only once. It is a way of living. It is a commitment to keep the heart free, to keep the spirit light, to keep the path clear. Without it, the past dominates the present. With it, the present opens into possibility. Forgiveness is how we stop dragging yesterday into today. It is how we stop repeating old stories and begin writing new ones. And so, we come to see forgiveness not as an optional virtue, but as an essential practice for freedom. To forgive is to live unchained. To forgive is to reclaim the present. To forgive is to love not blindly, not passively, but courageously. It is to choose compassion over hatred, peace over poison, freedom over bondage. This choice is not easy, but it is always available. In every moment, the door of forgiveness waits for us to open it. As we carry this lesson forward, we notice something else. Even when we forgive, suffering still arises in new forms. The world continues to bring challenges: illness, loss, aging, uncertainty. Forgiveness lightens the heart, but it does not erase the truth that life itself is fragile. And so, the next step on our journey is to face suffering directly. To ask not how to avoid it, but how to live with it wisely. In Part 7, we will turn to the universal truth of suffering itself, and we will see how the Dharma offers not despair, but a path of courage, resilience, and hope in the very midst of life's pain. Life has a way of reminding us, again and again, that suffering is unavoidable. No matter how carefully we plan, no matter how much we earn, no matter how much we love, pain still comes. Bodies get sick. Relationships end. Loved ones die. Dreams collapse. Even in moments of happiness, a quiet shadow lingers, the awareness that nothing lasts forever. This truth is so universal that the Buddha made it the foundation of his teaching. Life in this world, as we cling to it, is marked by suffering. He called it dukkha, not just physical pain, but the deep dissatisfaction that arises when we want life to be different from what it is. For many, this feels like a harsh message. At first, people resist it. They say, "No, life is good. Life is full of joy. Why focus on suffering? But the Buddha was not denying joy. He was pointing to the reality that even joy, when clung to, becomes suffering. The meal we love ends. The person we cherish changes. The success we celebrate fades. Everything we cling to slips through our fingers. And this slipping is what creates the ache in the heart. To acknowledge suffering is not pessimism. It is honesty. And only by facing suffering directly can we discover the freedom beyond it. Think of the way most people live. We spend so much energy trying to avoid suffering. We distract ourselves with entertainment, work, or endless consumption. We tell ourselves, if I can just get this, I will finally be happy. If I can just avoid that, I will finally be safe. But suffering still finds us. No amount of distraction can keep it away. The truth is that running from suffering only makes it worse. Like a shadow, it follows us wherever we go. But when we stop running, when we turn to face it, something extraordinary happens. Suffering becomes a teacher. It reveals truths about life we could not see otherwise. The first truth is impermanence. Everything changes. The flower blooms and withers. The body grows and ages. Emotions rise and fall. When we deny this, we suffer endlessly. We try to freeze life, to hold on to joy, to prevent loss. But when we accept impermanence, a new kind of peace appears. We stop clinging and we begin to savor. We enjoy beauty while it lasts. We love people while they are here. We embrace life in its fragile, fleeting form. Impermanence stops being an enemy and becomes a reminder to live fully now. The second truth is interconnection. Suffering shows us how deeply we depend on one another. When we are ill, we need care. When we grieve, we need comfort. When we struggle, we need support. Suffering humbles us. It breaks the illusion that we are separate, independent, self-sufficient. It reminds us that we are part of a vast web of life, where every being shares the same vulnerability. This recognition can open the heart. When we see that everyone suffers, compassion naturally arises. We stop judging others so harshly because we know their pain is not so different from our own. The third truth is possibility. Suffering, though painful, can be the doorway to awakening. The Buddha himself began his path not because life was easy, but because he saw sickness, aging, and death. He realized that no wealth or power could shield him from suffering. And so he sought a deeper freedom. In the same way, our own suffering can shake us awake. It can push us to ask the questions we usually avoid. What really matters? What is lasting? What is the meaning of this life? These questions, born from suffering, can lead us to wisdom and compassion. They can transform our pain into a path, but transformation does not happen by accident. It requires practice. When suffering arises, the instinct is to resist. We say, "This should not be happening." But resistance only adds another layer of pain. Practice means pausing, breathing, and allowing suffering to be here without judgment. It means saying, "Yes, this hurts. Yes, this is real. And I will meet it with awareness." This willingness to stay present with suffering, instead of running from it, is the beginning of liberation. It turns suffering from an enemy into a teacher God in Buddhist tradition. This teaching is expressed through the Four Noble Truths. The first truth, there is suffering. The second, suffering has causes, craving, clinging, ignorance. The third, suffering can end. The fourth, there is a path to its end, the path of mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom. These truths are not abstract philosophy. They are lived reality. We can see them in our daily lives. When we crave permanence, we suffer. When we let go, we find peace. When we live mindlessly, we suffer. When we live with awareness, we find freedom. The path is simple, though not easy, but it is always available in every breath, in every moment. So the pain of suffering is not only in the events themselves, but in our relationship to them. We suffer not just because we experience loss, but because we refuse to accept loss. We suffer not just because we feel pain, but because we demand that pain should not exist. This is why suffering feels endless, because we fight what is inevitable. But when we stop fighting, when we open to suffering with compassion and wisdom, we discover a surprising truth. Suffering does not destroy us. It humbles us. It softens us. It teaches us. And sometimes it even awakens us. When suffering arrives, most of us instinctively ask, why me? We see pain as an interruption of life, an unfair intrusion. But Buddhist wisdom reframes the question. Instead of why me, it asks, why not me? Suffering is not a punishment, nor a mistake. It is part of the human condition. To live is to encounter sickness, aging, loss, and change. When we stop taking suffering personally, we stop layering resistance on top of pain. We begin to see suffering as a natural aspect of existence, shared by every living being. This recognition opens the door to compassion. Suddenly, our pain connects us to others instead of isolating us. We realize, I am not alone in this struggle. Every person I meet has known heartbreak, fear, or grief. This shared truth unites us in a silent bond of humanity. And yet, even with this wisdom, suffering still hurts. It is important not to romanticize it. Pain is sharp. Loss is heavy. Grief can feel unbearable. The point is not to pretend suffering is pleasant. The point is to meet it honestly, without denial, without hatred. This honesty is what transforms it. When we allow ourselves to feel grief, tears cleanse the heart. When we allow ourselves to feel fear, courage quietly awakens. When we allow ourselves to feel pain, compassion deepens. In this way, suffering becomes fertile ground. Like rain soaking the soil, it nourishes seeds that would otherwise remain dormant. Seeds of patience, resilience, empathy, and love grow strong in the soil of suffering. Consider the way a broken bone heals. At the site of the fracture, the body creates new tissue, often stronger than before. In the same way, the broken places of our hearts can become places of strength if we meet them with awareness and compassion. Many who have suffered deeply become the most compassionate, the most gentle, the most wise. Their suffering did not vanish, but it shaped them into beings of great depth. This is the transformation the Buddha pointed toward, not the erasure of pain, but the alchemy of turning pain into wisdom. Still, this transformation is not automatic. Suffering can also harden us, making us bitter, closed, and fearful. The difference lies in how we meet it. Do we meet suffering with resistance and hatred, or with awareness and compassion? This choice makes all the difference. Two people can face the same loss. One becomes hardened, the other softened. The event is the same, but the response is different. The path of practice is learning to meet suffering with openness, so it softens us instead of hardens us. This is not easy, but it is possible. And with each moment of practice, it becomes more natural. One practice that helps is mindful breathing in the midst of pain. When grief rises, when fear tightens the chest, we return to the breath. We breathe in, aware of the pain. We breathe out, offering ourselves compassion. Breathing in, I know this is suffering. Breathing out, I hold it with kindness. This simple act of presence prevents us from drowning. It gives us a raft, even in the storm. Slowly, the waves settle. Slowly, clarity returns. The pain may remain, but it no longer consumes us. Another practice is gratitude. At first, gratitude in suffering sounds impossible. How can we be grateful when we are in pain? But gratitude does not deny the pain. It widens the perspective. Even in the darkest night, there may be a star. Even in the heaviest grief, there may be a hand to hold, a memory to cherish, a lesson to learn. Gratitude does not erase suffering, but it balances it. It reminds us that life, even in hardship, still contains beauty. This balance keeps the heart from collapsing into despair. Ultimately, the teaching of suffering is the teaching of the heart. Suffering shows us that life is fragile, precious, and fleeting. It urges us not to waste time in distraction or hatred. It calls us to love more deeply, to live more fully, to awaken more completely. It is a harsh teacher, but also a wise one. When we learn its lessons, we discover a peace that does not depend on avoiding pain, but on meeting life as it is dot. And so, Part 7 closes with this recognition. Suffering is not the end of the story. It is the doorway. The Buddha did not stop at the truth of suffering. He also taught the truth of its end, the possibility of freedom, the reality of peace. Suffering may always arise, but it does not have to dominate us. We can live with courage, with compassion, with joy, even in the midst of hardship. This is the promise of the path. As we carry this forward, we see the next step clearly. If suffering reveals the fragility of life, then the awareness of death makes this truth undeniable. Death is the great teacher, the reality we fear most, the truth we try hardest to avoid. And yet, when faced with openness, death becomes not a curse, but a guide to living fully. In Part 8, we will turn toward this most difficult subject. We will explore how the wisdom of impermanence and compassion can transform our fear of death into a deeper love for life itself. Death is the great silence that most of us try to avoid. We do not want to think about it, talk about it, or even acknowledge it. In modern culture, death is often hidden away in hospitals, spoken of in hushed tones, or disguised behind phrases like passed away or gone to a better place. We cover it with flowers, with rituals, with polite words, but underneath, most people live with a deep fear of it. This fear shapes how we live. It drives us to cling tighter to possessions, to relationships, to achievements, anything that can distract us from the truth that one day, everything will be gone. Yet, no matter how hard we try to avoid it, death waits for us all. It is the one certainty in a world of uncertainty. The Buddha urged his students not to avoid this truth, but to face it directly. He called it Maranasati, the mindfulness of death, not as a morbid obsession, but as a way to wake up fully to life. By remembering death, we remember what truly matters. We stop wasting time on trivial concerns. We see clearly that every moment is precious, every connection fragile, every breath a gift. Far from depressing us, the contemplation of death can fill us with gratitude and urgency. It can strip away illusions and help us live with authenticity. Death, when faced with wisdom, becomes not a terror, but a teacher. Think of how death changes our perspective when it touches our lives. The news of a terminal illness, the sudden loss of a loved one, the brush with our own mortality, these moments shake us. They break the illusion that we are invincible, that we have endless time. In their wake, priorities shift. Petty arguments no longer matter. Possessions lose their shine. What matters most is love, presence, kindness, truth. People often say after such experiences, "I see life differently now. I want to live with more meaning." This shift is the gift of death. It reminds us of what is real. Yet, most of us resist this lesson until we are forced to face it. Fear of death runs deep. It is the fear of losing everything we know, everything we are. It is the fear of stepping into the unknown. Some fear pain. Some fear nothingness. Some fear judgment. Whatever the form, the fear of death is essentially the fear of impermanence, the refusal to accept that we are not in control. This fear shapes not only how we die, but how we live. It makes us anxious, desperate to hold on, terrified of change. But when we confront death directly, the fear begins to loosen. We realize that running from death does not protect us. It only robs us of life. The teachings offer a different way. They remind us that death is not separate from life. It is part of it. Just as every inhale is followed by an exhale, every beginning is followed by an ending. To deny death is to deny half of reality. To accept death is to embrace life fully. This acceptance does not mean indifference. It means living with eyes open, with heart open, with courage. It means saying, yes, I will die someday, but today I am alive, and this moment is enough. One image often used is that of fragile cup. Imagine holding a porcelain teacup. You know it can break at any moment. This knowledge does not make the cup less valuable. It makes it more precious. You savor the beauty of its shape, the warmth of the tea, the joy of drinking. Every sip becomes sacred because you know it will not last. In the same way, when we remember the fragility of life, we savor it more deeply. We stop taking it for granted. We treasure the people we love, the experiences we share, the simple moments that might otherwise slip by unnoticed. Mindfulness of death can also free us from regret. Many people, near the end of life, say their greatest sorrow is not what they did, but what they left undone, the words unspoken, the love withheld, the risks avoided. Remembering death now prevents this regret. It pushes us to speak the words of love today, to mend the broken relationship today, to live with courage today, because we do not know how many tomorrows we have. Death reminds us, this moment is the only moment guaranteed. And yet, facing death also raises deep questions. What happens after we die? Is there anything beyond this life? The Buddha did not ask his students to cling to beliefs, but to observe the truth of impermanence here and now. He said that life and death are like waves rising and falling on the ocean. Each wave has a beginning and an end, but the water remains. In the same way, our bodies and identities may dissolve, but the flow of existence continues. Whether we believe in rebirth, in heaven, in nothingness, or in mystery, the essential truth remains. Clinging to permanence creates suffering, while acceptance brings peace. So death, far from being only an ending, is also a doorway. It is the teacher that strips away illusions, the mirror that shows us what matters, the reminder that we are not separate from the flow of life. When we live with the awareness of death, we live more fully. We love more deeply. We forgive more quickly. We waste less time. Death, then, is not the opposite of life. It is what gives life its urgency, its sweetness, its meaning. When we truly let the reality of death into our hearts, something remarkable happens. Fear begins to dissolve. Not because death disappears, but because it is no longer a stranger. What we fear most is often what we refuse to look at. Once we face it directly, the shadows lose their power. Death becomes less of a monster and more of a guide. It whispers, "Do not waste your days. Do not postpone your love. Do not cling to what will pass. Live fully, live kindly, live now." When we hear this whisper, our choices shift. Life no longer feels like an endless race. It feels like a precious gift. This wisdom is seen in many who have walked close to death. People who survive accidents or illnesses often say that their lives changed afterward. They speak of new clarity, new priorities, new joy in simple things. The air feels fresher. The sky looks brighter. A hug feels more profound. Why? Because when death brushed close, they remembered what they had forgotten. Life is fragile, and therefore, life is sacred. Every moment is unrepeatable. This awakening is not limited to those near death. We, too, can live with this awareness if we are willing to practice remembering. The Buddha advised his monks to reflect daily. This day could be my last. At first, Such a practice seems grim, but its effect is the opposite. When we remember that this day may be our last, we stop taking it for granted. We speak the kind words we would otherwise postpone. We let go of grudges we would otherwise carry. We live with honesty because there is no time for pretense. Mindfulness of death strips away distractions and reveals the essence of life. It teaches us to ask again and again, if this were my last day, how would I live? What truly matters? What deserves my attention, my energy, my love? This reflection also softens our fear of change. Every ending in life is a small death. Childhood ends, relationships end, jobs end, dreams end. Each ending prepares us for the final ending of this body. When we resist endings, we suffer. When we embrace them as part of the flow, we grow. Death is simply the ultimate change, the final release into the mystery. By practicing acceptance in small endings, we prepare for the great one. We learn to let go with grace. And what of grief, the pain that death leaves behind for those who remain? Grief is the echo of love. We grieve because we have loved, because we have cared, because someone's presence mattered deeply. Grief is not something to be erased, it is something to be honored. To grieve is to testify to the value of life. But grief also teaches us. It shows us that love does not end with death. The body may be gone, but the love remains, woven into memory, into the heart, into the fabric of who we are. In this way, death does not destroy love. It reveals its timeless nature. In learning to face death, we also discover compassion for all beings. Every person we meet is walking toward the same end. The stranger on the street, the friend across the table, the enemy we resent, all will one day die. When we remember this, anger softens, grudges fade. How can we waste time hating when we know the brevity of life? How can we waste energy competing when we know we are all destined for the same silence? The awareness of death makes every being precious, every encounter sacred. It opens the heart to universal compassion. Ultimately, death is the great teacher of letting go. All along this path, we have seen that suffering comes from clinging to control, to wealth, to love, to self, to past, to permanence. Death shows us the final truth. Nothing can be clung to forever. Not even this body, not even this breath. And yet, in releasing, we do not lose. We gain freedom. We gain peace. We gain the ability to live each moment fully, without fear of losing what will inevitably pass. So death, far from being the end of the story, becomes the turning point. It strips away illusions and invites us into reality. It reminds us of impermanence. It sharpens our compassion. It deepens our gratitude. It awakens our urgency to live. This is not morbid, it is liberating. For when we no longer fear death, we no longer fear life. We step into the present moment with open arms, ready to live, ready to love, ready to let go. And as we carry this wisdom forward, the next theme arises naturally. If death teaches us to let go, then the question remains, how do we live with presence? How do we cultivate the mindfulness that allows us to savor life, moment by moment, without being lost in fear, regret, or distraction? In Part 9, we will turn to the practice of mindfulness itself. We will explore how this simple yet profound awareness can transform the ordinary into the sacred, and how living fully in each breath is the true answer to the lessons of death. If death teaches us the urgency of life, then mindfulness teaches us how to actually live it. Too often, we pass through our days half asleep. We eat without tasting, walk without noticing, speak without listening. The body is in one place, but the mind is somewhere else, racing ahead into the future or replaying the past. In this distracted state, life slips by unnoticed. Years pass, and we wonder where they went. we miss the only moment that is truly ours, this one. Mindfulness is the art of reclaiming it. It is the practice of waking up to the present moment, of living fully in the here and now. Mindfulness is simple, but it is not easy. It means paying attention on purpose, without judgment. It means noticing the breath as it comes and goes, the body as it moves, the sounds and sights of the world as they arise and fade. It means being present with our own thoughts and feelings, even when they are uncomfortable. Mindfulness does not try to control experience. It does not demand that things be different. It simply says, be here, see clearly, allow life to unfold. In this openness, peace naturally arises. The Buddha compared the untrained mind to a monkey, leaping from branch to branch, restless and distracted. Mindfulness trains the monkey to sit still, to breathe, to rest. It tames the constant chatter, not by force, but by gentle attention. At first, the mind resists. It wanders again and again. But each time we notice, each time we return to the breath, we strengthen the muscle of awareness. Over time, the mind becomes steadier, clearer, calmer. We begin to see life with fresh eyes. Think of how mindfulness transforms ordinary moments. Eating a meal mindlessly, we barely notice the flavors. Eating mindfully, we taste each bite. We appreciate the effort that grew and prepared the food. We feel gratitude for the nourishment. Walking mindlessly, we rush from place to place, lost in thought. Walking mindfully, we feel the ground beneath our feet, the rhythm of our steps, the beauty of the world around us. Even washing dishes, often seen as a chore, becomes an act of peace when done with presence, the warm water, the simple motion, the quiet rhythm of care. Mindfulness does not add something new to life. It reveals the richness that was always there. Mindfulness also transforms how we meet our inner world. Without it, we are dragged around by thoughts and emotions. Anger arises and we lash out. Fear arises and we collapse. Craving arises and we chase it blindly. But with mindfulness, we notice, anger is here. Fear is here. Craving is here. We observe without judgment, without getting lost. This creates space. We no longer have to act on every thought or feeling. We can choose. We can breathe. We can respond with wisdom instead of habit. In this way, mindfulness is the foundation of freedom. Yet mindfulness is not only about calm, it is also about clarity. When we are present, we see reality more accurately. We notice the impermanence of everything, the breath rising and falling, the sounds appearing and fading, the thoughts passing like clouds. We notice the interconnectedness of everything: the food we eat, the air we breathe, the people who support our lives in countless unseen ways. This clarity dissolves illusions. It shows us that life is not about grasping for control, but about flowing with awareness. In seeing clearly, we suffer less. We cling less. We live more freely. The practice of mindfulness begins with the breath. The breath is always here, always available, always steady. By resting attention on the breath, we anchor ourselves in the present. When the mind wanders, we return gently, without judgment. This simple practice trains the mind to come home. Over time, mindfulness expands beyond the breath to the whole body, the whole mind, the whole world. Life itself becomes the meditation. Sitting, walking, eating, working every moment becomes an opportunity to practice. Mindfulness is not limited to the cushion. It is how we live. And what is the fruit of this practice? Peace. Not the peace of escaping life, but the peace of being fully alive. When we are mindful, we stop running. We stop clinging to the future or the past. We rest in the now. And in the now, there is always enough. The breath is enough. The moment is enough. Life just as it is enough. This simple truth, when lived deeply, dissolves much of our suffering. For most suffering comes from leaving the present, from craving what is not here or resisting what is. Mindfulness brings us back, again and again, to the only place peace can be found. Here, mindfulness is often described as a lamp in the darkness. Without it, we stumble through life half asleep, guided by habit and reaction. With it, the path becomes clear. We begin to notice not only what is happening around us, but what is happening within us. We recognize patterns that once controlled us. We see clearly the ways craving, anger, and ignorance create suffering. And because we see, we have the freedom to choose differently. Mindfulness shines its light not to eliminate darkness, but to reveal it. Once revealed, the darkness no longer has the same power. But mindfulness is not just about personal peace. It is also about how we relate to others. When we are mindful, we listen more deeply. We speak with more care. We notice the subtle needs of those around us. A mindful parent is not just physically present, but emotionally present, listening, noticing, responding with love. A mindful partner does not rush through conversations distracted, but gives full attention, creating space for connection. A mindful leader does not react with impulse, but responds with clarity and compassion. In this way, mindfulness becomes a gift we offer not only to ourselves, but to everyone we meet. Still, the practice requires patience. Many expect mindfulness to bring instant calm, as if a few breaths could erase years of distraction. But mindfulness is like training a muscle. At first, the mind wanders constantly. We may feel frustrated, but each return to the breath, each gentle noticing, is itself the practice. Slowly, the mind steadies. Slowly, presence deepens. Over time, mindfulness becomes less of an effort and more of a natural state. We find ourselves more often awake, more often calm, more often compassionate, not because life has changed, but because our way of meeting it has dot, and mindfulness is not meant to be isolated from life's challenges. In fact, it is tested most in difficulty. Can we be mindful when anger flares? When grief overwhelms? When fear tightens the chest? These moments are the true practice. Mindfulness does not promise to erase pain, but to meet it with awareness. When anger arises, we notice. This is anger. It burns hot in the chest. When grief arises, we notice. This is sorrow. It weighs heavy in the heart. By naming and noticing, we stop being consumed. We create space to breathe, to soften, to choose compassion. In this way, mindfulness transforms even suffering into a place of awakening. Another gift of mindfulness is joy. Not the joy of grand achievements or fleeting pleasures, but the quiet joy of being alive. When we are mindful, we notice the breeze on the skin, the warmth of the sun, the sound of laughter, the taste of tea. These small moments, often overlooked, become treasures. We realize that happiness is not hidden in the distant future. It is available here, now, in the simple miracle of existence. The more we practice, the more joy becomes natural, not dependent on conditions, but rooted in presence itself. Gratitude flows naturally from this awareness. When we are mindful, we see how much we receive every moment: the food on our plate, the breath in our lungs, the care of countless beings who make our lives possible. This recognition opens the heart. It dissolves entitlement and cultivates humility. We begin to live not with constant craving, but with appreciation. Gratitude softens suffering and multiplies joy. And mindfulness is the doorway through which gratitude enters. Ultimately, mindfulness is the foundation of freedom. It allows us to step out of the prison of distraction, craving, and fear. It shows us that peace is not somewhere else, sometime else. It is here, now, in this breath, in this step, in this very life. When we live mindfully, we live fully. We no longer waste life waiting for happiness. We discover that happiness has been waiting for us all along, hidden in plain sight, revealed by awareness. And so, Part 9 draws us toward the next truth. If mindfulness teaches us to live fully in the present, then the question arises, how do we carry this presence into the way we act, the way we serve, the way we love in the world? Awareness alone is not enough. It must blossom into compassion, into action, into wisdom expressed through our choices. In Part 10, we will explore how the path of mindfulness naturally leads to compassionate living. We will see how the heart, awakened to presence, longs not only for personal peace, but for the healing of others, and how the practice of compassion is the final expression of all we have learned on this journey. When mindfulness blossoms, it does not stop with awareness of ourselves. True mindfulness opens the door to compassion. As we become more present, we begin to notice not only our own breath, our own thoughts, our own suffering, but also the suffering of others. We see the tired cashier at the grocery store, the worried parent rushing with a child, the elderly neighbor sitting alone. We see not just with our eyes, but with our hearts. And when we see suffering, the natural response is compassion. Compassion is not pity. It is not looking down others. Compassion is the recognition that their pain is our pain, their joy is our joy, because we are deeply connected. The Buddha taught that compassion arises naturally when we see interconnection clearly. Just as one body has many parts, the world is made of many beings, each dependent on the others. The hand does not ignore the wound on the foot, because both belong to the same body. In the same way, when we see life clearly, we realize we are not separate from others. Their suffering affects us, their well-being supports us. To harm another is to harm ourselves. To care for another is to care for ourselves. Compassion is not an obligation, it is the natural expression of wisdom. But in modern life, compassion often feels difficult. We are surrounded by news of suffering on a global scale: wars, poverty, disasters. The sheer volume can overwhelm us. We feel small, powerless, unable to make a difference. Sometimes, to protect ourselves, we shut down. We say, "It is too much. I cannot care anymore." This shutting down is understandable, but it is not true compassion. True compassion does not mean carrying the weight of the whole world. It means responding to what is in front of us with the capacity we have in the moment we are in. Compassion is not about solving everything. It is about opening the heart to something. One way to practice is through small acts of kindness. A gentle word, a listening ear, a helping hand. These acts may seem small, but their impact is profound. A single smile can brighten a day. A single gesture can restore hope. Compassion ripples outward, touching more lives than we realize. Just as a drop of water creates waves in a pond, each act of kindness creates waves of healing in the world. We may never see how far they travel, but they matter deeply. Compassion also means learning to hold suffering without turning away. Often, when someone is in pain, we feel uncomfortable. We want to fix it quickly, or we want to escape. But true compassion does not rush to fix or to flee. It simply stays. It says, "I am here with you. You are not alone." This presence is more powerful than solutions. It gives the gift of connection, which often heals more than advice ever could. Compassion is not about removing all pain. It is about not letting anyone face pain alone. And compassion must include ourselves. Many people are kind to others, but harsh with themselves. They forgive everyone except themselves. They give love freely, but deny it inwardly. Yet self-compassion is essential. Without it, our giving becomes depleted, resentful, or hollow. Self-compassion means speaking to ourselves with the same kindness we would offer a dear friend. It means placing a hand on the heart when we are hurting and whispering, "It's okay. You are human. You are enough." Far from being selfish, self-compassion replenishes us so we can love more deeply. A dry well cannot give water. A heart that is nourished can overflow. Compassion also asks us to act. Awareness of suffering naturally leads to the question, what can I do? Sometimes the answer is small and immediate. Sometimes it is larger and systemic. Compassion in action may look like feeding the hungry, protecting the vulnerable, speaking for justice, or caring for the earth. Each act, large or small, is an expression of love in the world. But action rooted in compassion is different from action rooted in anger. Anger burns quickly and leaves ashes. Compassion burns steadily and sustains. Compassionate action is not frantic or violent. It is steady, courageous, and wise. This brings us to another truth. Compassion is not weakness. Many people fear that if they are too compassionate, they will be taken advantage of. But compassion does not mean passivity. It means strength guided by love. A parent who protects a child acts with compassion. A leader who stands up for the voiceless acts with compassion. Compassion can be fierce when needed, like a lioness protecting her cubs. It does not allow harm, but it refuses to let hatred be the response. This balance of strength and love is the heart of true compassion. Ultimately, compassion transforms the way we live. It turns daily interactions into opportunities for kindness. It turns work into service. It turns relationships into sanctuaries of love. It turns life itself into a gift, not just for us, but for all beings. Compassion is the flowering of mindfulness, the fruit of wisdom, the expression of awakening. Without it, practice is incomplete. With it, practice becomes alive. Compassion is how wisdom walks in the world. Compassion, when lived deeply, reshapes not only our relationships, but also our sense of purpose. Many people spend their lives chasing personal success, wealth, recognition, security. Yet, even when they achieve these things, a quiet emptiness often remains. Why? Because human beings are not designed only to consume and achieve. We are designed to connect, to care, to contribute. Compassion fills the space that success alone cannot touch. It gives meaning beyond the self. It turns life from a private race into a shared journey. In daily life, compassion can be as simple as pausing before reacting. When anger rises, instead of lashing out, we ask, what pain might this person be carrying? When someone disappoints us, instead of judging, we ask, what struggle might they be facing? This shift of perspective softens the heart. It does not excuse harmful actions, but it sees them with understanding. Compassion gives us the power to respond with wisdom instead of reflex, with care instead of cruelty. In this way, compassion transforms conflicts into opportunities for healing. Compassion also expands beyond individuals, into the way we live collectively. When societies value compassion, they create systems that care for the vulnerable, protect the environment, and seek peace instead of war. Without compassion, societies become harsh, competitive, and divided. The Buddha taught that compassion is not only a personal practice, but a collective one. A community guided by compassion becomes a refuge for all. It becomes a place where kindness is the norm, where suffering is shared, where love flows freely. Such communities may be rare, but even a small circle of compassion can radiate outward, touching countless lives. Yet, compassion is not always easy. It asks us to feel the suffering of others, and that can be heavy. To carry it wisely, we must balance compassion with mindfulness. Otherwise, we risk burnout or despair. This balance is like breathing. Compassion is the in-breath, taking in the pain of the world. Mindfulness is the out-breath, releasing it, resting, returning to the present. Together, they sustain us. They keep our hearts open without being overwhelmed. They allow us to serve without losing ourselves. The practice of compassion also requires courage. To love in a world that often chooses fear is radical. To care in a world that prizes competition is revolutionary. Compassion asks us to go against the grain, to live differently, to embody values that are often dismissed as weakness. But true courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to love even when it is hard. Compassion is the highest form of courage. When compassion becomes the foundation of our lives, everything changes. Work becomes an offering. Relationships become sacred ground. Even suffering becomes an opportunity to connect. Compassion does not erase pain, but it makes pain meaningful. It shows us that love is stronger than fear, that kindness is stronger than cruelty, that connection is stronger than isolation. Compassion is the bridge that carries us from suffering to awakening, and so we come to the close of this journey. We began with stress, with the restless ache of modern life. We explored the struggles of money, relationships, anxiety, identity, forgiveness, suffering, death, and mindfulness. At every step, we saw how clinging creates pain and how awareness, compassion, and letting go create freedom. Compassion is the final fruit of this path, the natural flowering of all the teachings. Without it, wisdom is incomplete. With it, life becomes whole. From here, the conclusion unfolds naturally. The lessons we have explored are not abstract ideas, but living practices. They call us not only to understand, but to embody, to live with presence, to meet suffering with courage, to love with compassion, to let go with wisdom. This is the path of freedom. This is the invitation of the Dharma, and it is always available in every breath, in every step, in every moment of our lives. Life in the modern world can feel overwhelming. Stress, money, relationships, anxiety, identity, forgiveness, suffering, death, and the endless distractions of our time pull us in 1,000 directions. It is easy to feel lost, to feel small, to feel trapped. But throughout this journey, we have seen another way. The teachings of mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom show us that freedom is not somewhere far away. It is here, in the way we breathe, in the way we see, in the way we love. We have learned that stress is not destiny, but a signal to return to the present. That money is not the measure of worth, but a tool to be used with care. That relationships, though fragile, can become places of deep healing when nurtured with compassion. That anxiety, though persistent, can be softened by awareness and trust. That identity, though powerful, is not fixed, and that letting go of rigid labels opens us to freedom. That forgiveness is the key to setting down old burdens, both toward others and toward ourselves. That suffering, though universal, can become the ground of awakening when faced with courage. That death, far from being only an ending, is the great teacher that reveals life's preciousness. That mindfulness is the practice of truly living each moment. And that compassion is the flowering of it all, the expression of wisdom in action. These are not distant ideals. They are practices, choices, steps we can take every day. To pause and breathe, to listen with presence, to forgive with courage, to let go with trust, to open the heart with compassion. Each small act is a seed. Planted daily, these seeds grow into peace, into resilience, into love. They grow into a life that is not free from pain, but free within pain. A life that is not free from endings, but free within endings. A life that is not separate, but deeply connected. And so, as we close this journey, the invitation is simple. Live awake. Live with presence. Live with compassion. Do not wait for tomorrow to love. Do not wait for the perfect moment to forgive. Do not wait for fear to vanish before you live. Life is here. The breath is here. The heart is here. This moment is enough. If even one seed from this journey takes root in your heart, let it be the seed of compassion. For compassion will guide you when wisdom feels distant. Compassion will soften you when suffering feels heavy. Compassion will connect you when life feels lonely. And compassion, offered to yourself and to others, will always lead you home. May you walk this path with courage. May you meet your suffering with gentleness. May you discover freedom in letting go. May you live fully, love deeply, and leave behind footprints of kindness on this earth.